a ridiculous amount
Here's
of
the
League of
question
Legends.
for you. Here's the question. It is the $1 million question. Potentially, literally. Here's the question. So everyone obviously has done the armchair GM approach of saying like, hey, Trimbio's on the desk, even on LEC, just bring him over. Hey, guys, Abatagia's out there. I just did an interview. The Abatagia's there, isn't he? Like, Finn, Finn's out there. He was an LEC player. They've done all that, right? But there's the real question I have, Monty. It's a two-parter. One is, do you actually think, though, that these wins at the end mean Karmine Corp will make no roster moves?
Yes, I do think that.
If not, because I'm worried about that too. If not, if they decide not to make any roster moves, is there one that you think is the most important one? What would your most important move be if they choose not to do it? Do you also think they won't do it? Because I'm really scared they'll just keep the same 5-man lineup, mate. I think they will. I just think they will.
I think so. Here's what I think. I think that they're going to look at this and they're going to decide, well, we were doing well in the early game of some of the games that we lost and we threw. These are fixable mistakes. And so we're going to, try to run this back, especially they'll ignore the fact that they basically got a garbage win potentially against BDS, even though, and by the way, guys, I think that win was entirely thanks to Yamato. I think that draft was almost unlosable.
Oh, he was killing it.
I think it was almost unlosable. It was a fucking brilliant draft by him. And by the way, if you guys didn't know this is exactly the same way this last week that we saw D+ beat Genji in game 1 of their best of 3, which is that D+ was on red side. They R5 Olaf into Varus Ashe. This is going to be becoming a more common tactic. Right. But because Yamato is aware of what's going on in other regions, I think he just yoinked that right out of D+. And if D+ can stomp all over Genji doing that, you better believe that's
a good logic. Yeah.
Karmine Corp can take down BDS.
That could be piloted without your players having to just be gods, essentially. Right?
Yeah, be better. Actually, just literally be better.
Yes.
So I think it was a great draft, and I believe that Yamato probably cribbed that from D+, which no shame in doing. That's why we pay attention to other regions, because they have good ideas that we can use to win games.
I also appreciate, by the way, any time someone actually does the pure banter of just Adaming with an Adam champion, which I just appreciate that. I think it's funny. It's like, yeah, that's right. Guess what, you fuck? We can do it to you as well. Enjoy the Olaf bitch. Enjoy.
Look, I think it was a good win, but I also think it's kind of a fake win because BDS didn't have to win. It didn't matter whether they won or lost, really.
I can't lie. I would come in and I'd tell Targamas this. I'd go, great bad game. Now take a magical fucking journey out of this team.
Yeah.
Mate, what the fuck? I'm not joking. Part of me low-key hates when everyone does just bang on one player, but I've also never seen one player that sort of deserved it as much as this. Because the real problem is this, Monty. I'll just throw this out there, by the way. Even though I'm about to say something that's against my own interests, I do think it's bonkers that we get the comms from teams that are shit. It happened with Excel last year as well, remember, when they were all time because the problem with the comms is, by the way, two things. One of them is really funny, but I'll leave it for a second. One is, this just almost confirms when certain people are really fucking having problems in the game, which is actually pretty dangerous. But then two, and this is the really fucked up angle, is obviously, I want to hear the comms. I think it is important to do it, but fucking hell. I feel like when you hear those comms, doesn't it just make it hard to even hide if the players are having problems? Part of me does feel put it this way, in Counter-Strike, by the way, guys, they don't let these comms get out there. Players are really fucking touchy about this topic. Anyone can, because they're also worried about tactical things. I'm actually just shocked as to why they released them. You know what I mean? Because they did this again, like I say, with another team that was losing. It almost feels like you must know that the players are going to get scapegoated if you do that. I want the info. It's great to have it. It allows you to on the second thing I was going to say, I've just remembered it was this, Monty. Are you ready for the real one? That I'll just, as usual, turn and piss into the fans' faces now. That is the way I like to do it. So here's what I'll say, guys. You know how when you listen to some of these comms, you go, oh my God, the level of insight I've just gotten is incredible. Now I know things about how this player plays, now he interacts with his teammates I never knew before. So imagine, if you had access to that info, Me and Monty have access to that info and have had for 10 years and know literally the player that was playing in the lane with the player that you then tell us we don't know anything about laning. Like, I've even come out, by the way, I've done a Richard Lewis before. Difference is I always just say that when I get things from players, it informs me. I've done his thing where, like, someone's told me, oh, this matchup, like, we couldn't have played it. I've said that, and then the guy on stream's like, I'm playing Plat, and that's not even how that matchup works. Meanwhile, they don't know that, like, literally fucking Perks AD's, like, telling me, like, how he... Like, so as usual, don't ever for a second, guys, imagine that we might have, like, access to players and coach and know these things and therefore have insight. Just assume that, like you, we're just bozos who saw an interview in a stream and are just speculating it all. In fact, if we ever tell you any really insightful thing, we probably just hate that person. Because that's the one thing they can never do. Somehow the biggest flaw of the fan is this. It's not that you guys don't know, by the way. You shouldn't. You're not in our position. But what you always do for some weird reason is assume that you know more than us and that we can't know more than you. Meanwhile, we're the only ones objectively who could know more than you because we just have access to them all, you idiots. Like, the saddest thing of all is, this is why, if people don't know, as a quick tangent, this is why in CSGO, I actually think I'm going to end up looking awesome for this because he's doing great in Na'Vi now. That's why I always doubled down on that LXEB guy that was an OG, if you remember, Monty, because we could actually listen to the comms when we did Flashpoint. And so I knew that he was a good IGL. I could actually hear him making the calls, see them play out and win. So then when all the fans were going, here's a shit IGL, I was like, no, I'm going to double down on him. I just kept doubling down because I could actually do it. It's actually why also, unfortunately, because we don't have this for every team, you do make weird speculations. I'll give you a quick random one and we can move on. It's actually the one about Hans Sama. Do you know that thing back in the day where, cause as an actual person outside of the game, he's a really shy guy. He's quite quiet. He doesn't like go out the way He's even to this day, he doesn't try to make himself a superstar. He's not trying to be a huge streamer or anything. So as a result, people always had this thing behind the scenes that they said he was like that as a player in the game. And they said, like, you know, when he had Mickey X, it was like the bottler that never talked. The joke is, I don't know if this changed at some point, but everyone now says behind the scenes, he's the most vocal AD. And he's like the AD that essentially shot calls the whole game and like tells you the whole time. Like, he literally, are you ready for the cool details? Supposedly, he plans out his whole laning phase, Monty, like what waves he even wants a jungler to come on. And his whole game plan is like try and win the game like 20 minutes into the game by just winning from laning phase. And then he literally, when he has any items or a champion with agencies, this is why, by the way, he's so much better on his champions than the ones that are just meta champions. When he has a Draven and he has the kills, he'll just shot call people around him and tell them, like, come now, group mid, we're going to fight for this objective. So the joke is, it actually, if you don't have inside contacts, sometimes you can come to, I've done it to myself on this particular play, you can come to completely the wrong conclusion. But when you look into it, you can find some amazing details. This is why unironically, those voice comms are a gold mine, guys. It will blow your mind to just see who made what call, what connection was. Sometimes when they don't make a call, that's the craziest one, like you were saying about the Saka one, right? So when people are in a fight and Targamas isn't calling like some shit he's obviously seeing on the screen, like that changes totally how you analyze the game at that point.
Yeah. And look, I think that it is hugely important for the success of the league for these comms to be put out there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's the same thing that it's the same reason, Thorin, why I support player salary transparency, because the players may not like it, because then they get flamed because they have a giant salary. But it's like, just don't look at Twitter. And also, like, how sad are we going to be if you're making $1 million a year and somebody tweets a mean tweet that you don't deserve that money? I mean, grow up. Come on. Whereas the upside to this is absolutely enormous, because we get to have really interesting conversations about who is worth their value, right? Who is worth it in order to, you know, who is actually playing up to their level, who is of steel, who is overpaid. And these are really important questions, particularly during off seasons when there's not a lot of content and new contracts are being kind of laid out. So I think contract transparency, purely to create buzz around various leagues in League of Legends or Counter-Strike or any esports game, would be really, really good information to be out there publicly, because I think it actually keeps the fans engaged.
Use this example. You could also use this example, Monty. Even though it would play very badly for Karmine Corp, if you saw that, like, Board Upset were on huge contracts, it would change how people discuss their performance, right? Meanwhile, let me spin it the other way. If you found out that Merwin from Mad Lions, I'm just using examples here, I'm obviously speculating, I'm not saying the behind the scenes before. If you found out actually that Merwin guy's on like a low salary, you'd be even more impressed. You'd be like, actually, these guys, they've killed it with the GM in. Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, and it also, I think, it saves certain teams from flames. Like, clearly Mad Lions is not going with an expensive roster, guys. So I think compared to how much they're paying, they probably are in like 8th to 10th place in the league when it comes to player salaries. I don't know for sure. That's my guess.
It's a good guess.
It's a good guess. They're in the bottom 3, almost certainly. Then what does that mean about their performance where they end 5-4, right? It means like they've overperformed. And I think these are really interesting conversations that we could be having. And I think, you know, in a similar way, releasing the comms are good. First off, these comms give no information about team strategy. Like, let's be very clear. There is no, you know, draft phase discussion that is leaked that says like Yamato's like, oh, we could do this thing that we are planning on doing, but let's save it for a different game, or this scenario didn't play itself out. They're very careful about the information that they release. But what it has done is it's created an extraordinary amount of interest in Karmine Corp, and also a way to kind of diagnose their play that creates content. I mean, for example, I made a video called, you know, Karmine Corp's Autopsy, where I go through their games and then I listen to the comms of that game immediately after, and I compare my analysis to what I'm learning from seeing that comm. And you can go check that out on my YouTube. I mean, Cage released a video about this. I think Dom released a video about this. So really, it's generated. What it's done is it's generated a phenomenal amount of interest.
Everyone's done it.
In the LEC and particularly in Karmine Corp. So, and also people watch the Karmine Corp video on its own. And then all of the people who make videos watch the Karmine Corp video and then made their own videos on that. So the value that you get as a brand and the eyeballs and the obsession is just so good for Karmine Corp. Like, I'm not going to say losing is good, but like, this is the best way to lose. Let's be clear. The best way to lose is the way you lose when everyone's still fucking talking about you.
I'll give you the analogy, Monty. Someone who obviously works on the LFN network over on CSGO is obviously Kasad, the Serbian coach who has had like a decorated career in Counter-Strike. And if people don't know, he's taken up a coaching job again. He now coaches a team. It's that one from like Southeast Asia, Bleed, the org, but it's like a European team. And he's trying to qualify to the major and the RMR, right? Even though, Monty, if you actually saw this lineup of players, nobody would give a fuck. There would never be a thread about this. There would never be a comment. It's just a bunch of players where it's like a couple of them are okay, and then some of them are like, haven't made it yet, and some of them are just whatever. And the joke is, the main reason you watch and follow this, and everyone is in Counter-Strike, is just because of Kasad, their coach. Yep. Like, everyone's watching it to pull against him, to prey on his downfall. People who like him are pulling because they like him as a person. The whole discussion at all times is about what he thinks about like Huxley and G2, and how can he do it? And as you're saying, the joke is that actually shows the value of this approach, because it means even when you lose, you're somehow one of the top most talked about teams. Yep. Whereas the joke there is like, bro, people are talking more about Bleed sometimes than like fucking Astralis, who has like a super team right now with Danish players. Like, that's because it's kind of expected they'll be good, whereas the Bleed one is bringing the strikes. I agree with you, Monty. This is why, low key, even though it was definitely detrimental to people's reputations, I do think releasing Breaking Point was genius from Team Liquid.
Oh, it's great.
They took a season where they hoped that they were filming what would be like a cool documentary of making like a world's run, and then when it went to shit, they released it so that, I tell you what, we all know fucking loads about that season, those players, and that particular time in a way we wouldn't if they were just an also ran. If they really had it just gone like to the playoffs and lost, no one would give a fuck. Like, it'd be like, that's a shame. Whereas like now, some of those scenes are iconic. We all remember Dardock and Loco smashing the keyboard. It was fucking amazing. So I actually think it is a great way to just bring attention. Yeah.
Well, and think about what happens in the future. Okay, so think about what happens right now. You have sponsors for Karmine Corp, right? Well, how are you going to get eyeballs on you when you are not even qualified for the next phase of the LEC? Well, you're going to create content that everybody's going to fucking watch and make content off of, right? Okay, so what happens if you keep doing this? Well, you probably can't get worse. Let's be honest, you probably can't get worse. So everybody's going to flock to this content next split when you either like get better or you make a roster change, because everybody's going to be curious about what's going on.
If you really were as cynical as I could be, Monty, I'm not sometimes, I actually am sort of like a fucking jaded optimist. I'm not really that cynical a person, but if you were really cynical, here's what you do, Monty. This is how you get 1 billion views on a YouTube video. You actually get, in this time, because you've got a few weeks now, Monty, where you're not doing anything. Obviously, you wait for the next split, aren't you? What you do is this video, Karmine Corp. Look, I wouldn't advise he makes this. It actually will be something of a metaphorical career suicide. But if you want all the attention, just have Upset do a video where it's called called Upset Makes Excuses, and he just makes an excuse for every lane in every game. Just let him do that. Because by the way, he's one of those people, as I've told you in the past, who's really good at like coming up with the reasons to why like the matchup went this way. So first of all, he could do great content. It would be very interesting matchup analysis. But obviously every hater in the world they'd have to watch this video. And by the way, the best part is, I promise you, they wouldn't watch and click off. They'd watch the whole thing and then flame him. So you would get so many views on this video, but you'd have to be able to tank the flame. That's the thing. You'd have to be able to take the abuse, because like it would actually be insane. It would be fucking amazing. I can't lie. Also, I've got one quick thing to say, which is obviously fair play. The one thing Karmine Corp did turn up with was that fan base, that blue wall, who were at all the games, chanting, doing things. Well, here's the problem, right? Obviously, you'll know this, Monty. Now, everyone feels a bit sorry for them because, you know, they're coming with this passion, but the team's losing. But everyone remembers what it was like if you ever commented on a French player during Worlds, or if you commented on Karmine Corp when they were in the RL. Everyone knows how obnoxious those fans are. So you know what, guys? All in all, you're just another dick in that wall. That's all you are. That's all you are. It's just another dick in that wall. That's you're not in the team. Spoiler, it looks at you. It looks at you play mid lane. You play fucking Azir and Akali, guys. Like, the joke is, like,
might be able to do it
hasn't worked out. Because actually, you know the other thing I want to throw out there as well.
You went for that joke instead of the blue balls for the blue wall, because that's a good one too. You know.
Well, yeah, but the problem is now they've come, haven't they? But it's like a failed orgasm, isn't it? These last two games just don't really mean anything. So you got hype, but what is it? Just playing with yourself. You know, the other person wasn't even involved. Just selfish onanism, the sin of Karmine Corp. Commit the sin of onanism. There's the headline of the episode of This Is Money Inside. If people don't remember, we used to actually do mad, before you used to get fucking demonetized for it. We had some mad edgy ones back in the, we had one that just, we had Froggen on. It's just called Thorin Does Not Recognize the Magna Carta. Which that's actually banging up. I love that that's the headline still in history to that one. No, the other problem as well in their team is this, is like, does anyone actually... Oh, that was what I was going to say. I was going to say one thing that is weird, this though, Monty, is technically there are all these teams now that a bunch of them, like obviously BDS has like the whole French connection, but they don't seem to have the same like fan reaction, even though they're on top of the league. Karmine Corp's at the bottom. Same as Mad Lions is like a mid-table team, but then Giant X Giants is a Spanish org. What I'm not getting really is are they just fans of those teams? Is it not like fan base? I was thinking it would be more like all Spanish teams, all French teams. Right. That's what's making people follow them.
And Ibai. It's Kamento and Ibai,
right.
You know, leading the cheering squads and everything like that, and having, I think, a lot of grassroots, you know, so it's those connections.
To be fair, it's the part where actually I will say people like you, me, and Dom sometimes do actually get lost in the sauce ourselves. We're actually taking it at face value, like these random fans are real fans of LEC and they're like, watch the game. No, half of them are just like a 12-year-old Zoomer idiot watching a giant streamer influencer guy who's going, hey guys, I am Ludwig / moist critical penguin fuckface guy who knows nothing. Hey, socialism, guys, socialism for the LCS, a walkout. Like that, I do forget that it is just it's essentially, by the way, Karmine Corps are essentially a bunch of fucking rats following the Pied Piper. My bad.
Yes.
My bad, Kameto. You're the Pied Piper in this particular case, mate. So fuck off into that little rock, into the, I don't know, netherworld or whatever the fuck it was, you know.
By the way, and that was also part of the interesting thing that happened with LEC was because they fired those people. They couldn't use their in-studio streaming setups this last week. So Kameto and Ibai couldn't be in the studio co-stream, or Kadril.
Damn it all to hell.
Which, like, you know, is hilarious because they just got, you know, record viewership in week 1 because they had all these co-streamers there. And then they just like, nah, you can't come on site anymore. You know, it was really cool when you were sitting there and the stage was in the background and Kameto's like flipping out in French, but no, you just stay home, Kameto, this week. I mean, the degree to which they fumbled this is just extraordinary.
This is where I'm waiting for like a week to come up in LEC where it's a big grudge match, Monty. It is like French versus Spanish team. You know, there's all the fucking rivalry, and then a fight breaks out in the crowd, and it's going like it's one of those like it's almost like the Malice at the Palace when the Pacers and the Pistons played back in the day. It's just people just punch each other, and then someone turns like, "Get the security," and they were like, they were laid off 2 weeks ago. Like, oh shit, what the fuck? Luckily though, the one good thing is this: when obviously the main fans of Karmine Corp go to throw the knockout blow, though, obviously they'll just load up and then they won't quite be able to pull the trigger in tribute to Sakan. So there you go. That's the ultimate joke. So,
let's pull the punch. All right, I'm going to answer your question now about what you would do with this team, because we never actually got to that. I do think that Trimby, if he's willing to join this roster, is just a no-brainer move. Like, I don't I don't
I
understand.
believe Upset likes him as well, by the way. So I don't think there's even be any like problem there. I think they like each other, as far as I know.
Yeah, so I don't know about their personal relationships, but it just seems like a no-brainer. Like, it's crazy that this guy didn't end up on a team as it was. You know, I don't know if there's like personal problems or he has trouble dealing with his teammates or coaches or why he keeps getting dropped from like Rogue and then
As
this
far as
roster.
I know, from at least from what he said in my interview, it was implied that he got fucked by the thing where, because he was at Worlds, like all the other teams made the rosters without him, sort of. And then when he came to sort of find out it wasn't in Fnatic, it was like, oh, there aren't any spots available. That's what I heard. It was sort of like he lost the game of musical chairs, as it were, Monty.
Yeah, and you know, maybe Noah just insisted on having Jun and, you know, and Korean support come in. Like, I don't know the reasoning. But you know, it is weird that he's kind of been dropped from 2 top teams where he was a major performer. So I do wonder if perhaps there are some attitude issues there. But regardless, like, I think you take a flyer on this because Targamas, we can't say like one okay Bard game is going to be enough to absolve him of his sins that he has committed. And at least with Seiken Thorin, maybe there's a world where during this during this time between splits, you could get him some, you know, a sports psychologist or something that can help him because you have some time in order to do that and try and run it back if you believe that he's going to be, you know, a decent mid laner. And Cabashard's performance, while not great, has gotten better. And like, you certainly don't get rid of Bo and Upset. So I would say maybe you make one change. If you're me, you change out mid as well and maybe top. Now, I don't know who you get for mid, but like Finn is also just sitting there, and I'm pretty sure Finn is a better top laner, even though I have never been the biggest fan of Finn because I think he like he creates a ceiling for your team. Like, he's got his little weird Kled picks and like he's pretty good, but is he ever going to be like really good? The answer has been traditionally no. And I think that's why he has kind of bounced around from teams and like failed to stay on one, is because when you have Finn, it's just hard not to see the grass being greener. You know what I mean?
The biggest problem, though, Monty, is if you think about it, right? Let's say I gave you your dream. I'll give you all 3 changes. Are you ready? I am bringing in Trimby, Abadagi, and Finn. I've replaced all the problems. There's now no one French in the team, Monty. Like, this is why this nationalism approach, guys, is always limited, because the problem here is they actually are the players that can't be removed. I even think, by the way, I'm just going to say it right now, I think that's also part of why Bo and Upset are tanking all this fucking flame all the time, because the joke is those are the 2 best players in this team by far. Like, number 1 is probably Bo, number 2 is Upset. Like, give me a break. Like, what are we? If you're hating on those guys, like, you just actually are evil, because their teammates are fucking like inting the game away and doing nothing. What are you hating on them for?
Look, here's another idea. You know what I mean? Like, Leader is technically a free agent. Leader might work actually very well with Bo. Jizuke is still technically a free agent. I have no idea how much these guys are playing League of Legends right now. But if you want really aggressive players to kind of line up with Bo, like Leader and Jizuke, I think are very interesting thought experiments.
Also, remember, if you've got a scenario where the morale's not high in the team, Jizuke's laughter fucking cures cancer. It's fucking unbelievable, isn't it? That laugh is actually, mate, every time I hear it, it makes me perk up. It's actually brilliant, isn't it? He's got such a great personality.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think they do have some options, but again, it's like, if you insist that this team must be French, I mean, you've already kind of sabotaged yourself in a way. So unless you've got some, you know, up and coming French talent that you think you can develop, which, you know, if Karmine Corp has the money and they have the popularity, then I assume that more French people, you know, young French people are going to play League of Legends as a result of this team and their popularity and their association with Kometo. And if that's the case, then perhaps on a long enough timeline, this will work. All
right, here's my inappropriate and rude joke about the Karmine Corp fans. But what's clever is by just making it about Karmine Corp fans and not saying a different demographic grouping, I avoid all the trouble. So the joke is, you know, in the story of Napoleon, the legendary emperor of France, who won all those battles. Sure. By the way, shout out. See, I really do give props. Spoiler, he was fighting against my people, in case you're unaware. So I'm actually giving him flowers there. Flowers for Napoleon. Basically, there's a famous thing, which is why they made that movie so focused on it, that obviously when he was in love with this Josephine woman, well, what's sad is, as they show in that movie, it's essentially the equivalent of getting your sexts leaked. Like all the letters he wrote to her that were intimate letters, Wars sadly got like stolen and sold, as you talk about in that movie. And as a result, we can actually go and see, and they're a bit cringe, like all sex, by the way, because obviously you think it's not for a wide audience. It's the intimate person that you know, and they have all your little peccadillos. And so one of them famously that everyone used to laugh at is this one that goes something like, "I'll be back in 3 days, don't wash." The joke is, a Karmine Corp fan hears that and goes, "Why would you?" Anyway, because there's the one joke that no one has the balls on the broadcast to make, that if I was on LEC, I'll give you a little alternate universe, guys. Here's why LEC would be so different if I was on it, but it also wouldn't be LEC. Because if I was on the broadcast on day 1 of week 1, Monty, and they were doing that thing of like, wow, well, we've got the Mad Lions fans here with their contingent doing the drums, we've got the Karmine Corp blue wall, I would just look out when they did that crowd shot and do that line where I'd go, "I bet it smells crazy out there." I'd just do that joke. That would be my joke, and I would be immediately fired. So there you go. Quick shot style. So. But that was, listen though, don't make any assumptions about nationality, guys. That was just about Karmine Corp fans. It's not just using like a legal defense. Yeah, no. It's good. It's great. I've established
it's great. It's great.
Nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to just like a group of fans. Never along national lines, guys. Never. I've learned that mistake. Believe it or not, Monty, there's another thing of a 10-year anniversary. We're also not that far from a certain anniversary in March from 2014. Also, Monty, if you remember that one, when I was locked in a hotel room.
I do. Never forget Katowice.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.